you, sir. This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com. And other than the big Logan Paul and KSI fights this past weekend, there was another fight in Iowa between none other than UFC Hall of Famer, former UFC champion Pat Miletich, who's been on this channel many times, and Mike Jackson, who couldn't finish CM Punk, got the victory in UFC, but it was eventually turned into a no contest due to him failing a marijuana test, I believe. I have not seen the fight. I've only read reviews of it. King of Connecticut, good friend of Pat Miletich, did watch the fight, as well as his friend Jason, former UFC and King of the Cage fighter. So I'll let the King of Connecticut, former MMA fighter himself, amateur wrestler, pro wrestler, he does it all. I'm going to let King of Connecticut take over this show, and you fans can chime in if you want. But we're basically going to dissect the fight and what happened in it. And Pat, despite what some people are reporting, did pretty damn good for a 55-year-old.
57.
Pat, Pat totally murked Mike Jackson, man.
57, man.
Wow.
For a 57-year-old, it was awesome. First of all, thank you, Hannibal. I want to say happy birthday to the Hannibal, and it is our pleasure to be on the Hannibal TV. And Jason Reinhardt's a long-time Miletich fighting system fighter. Came out of the Midwest. Y'all remember him from UFC back in the day. And Jason, I just want to give you the floor to kind of break down that fight.
I mean, man, I thought it was the best thing I've seen in MMA in 10 years, man. I mean, I know I'm biased, but for him to do what he did, and let me tell you, I'm not a Mike Jackson fan, obviously. I don't agree with his views, but I try to understand him, but he never gives any true explanation. You know, that's the problem. But what I couldn't, but with that being said, people call him a bum and this and that. But keep in mind, man, he beat CM Punk. He sent that guy to the hospital. Is CM Punk a high-level MMA fighter? No, but he's a strong dude. He's an athletic guy. He's been in that WWE cage or the ring. I mean, that's no joke. I know that it's pre-scripted a lot of times, but I mean, those guys go through a lot, man. And look what Mike Jackson did to that guy. So look what Pat did to Mike Jackson. I mean, unbelievable. That with that straight right hand, right? Pat used to teach us, right, when you throw that leg kick, right, when you bring it up, throw the straight right hand down the middle. And that's exactly what he did.
It was beautiful. It was poetry in motion. And CM Punk, I mean, this is a gentleman who had all the money in the world to train in a top camp for a year before that fight he had with Mike Jackson. I mean, he had the best coaching, and they actually said that they were doing rounds with him to see how good he was with pro fighters, lower level pro fighters, and he was winning 40% or so, which isn't great, but certainly no slouch. Absolutely not. And my God,
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And my God, I mean, I had goosebumps, Jason. I've been talking to Pat and helping Pat promote this thing. I did some promos for him for his social media, and he gave me a link. We did a pre-show with my buddy Kamal Shalarus. And I should say this, Pat, a longtime friend. 15 years ago, I was out of CTC Austin, which was a Miletich Fighting Systems gym. And that's where I first met Pat. My coach was Prince of Persia, Kamal Shalarus, but Kamal's coach was the Croatian sensation, Pat Miletich. And man, I'll tell you, when we did that pre-show with Kamal was talking about how amazing Pat was. And let's tell people that don't know the history of UFC. I mean, I look back at some of the old camps from back in the day. Great friend of mine is Mark Coleman, and even Phil Baroni, who we won't talk about. He's got his own personal stuff going on. But Hammer House, man, you're talking about guys that were ground and pound. and they were dominant, but they were somewhat one dimensional. Hell, I've done over 3 dozen camps, coaching camps for amateur wrestling, DT, and MMA at MMA schools with Dan Severn. Dan, great guy, but
Yep.
Dan will tell you himself, not a good boxer. And Pat Miletich, man, he was the prototype of what was to come.
You got that right. You got that right,
man.
brother. And you got that right. And back in those days, I mean, it was crazy. Like, look when Pat won Battle of the Masters. I think that was in '98 or something like that. And,
Yeah.
And I remember talking about Mark Coleman. I remember him coming to the gym. We were in this little racquetball court. You had to duck to get in. And Mark came to have Pat training for his 2000 Grand Prix. I think 2001 or 2000 Grand Prix it was, 2000. And man, Pat got his hands going. Sure did.
So, man, Pat was he was so well-rounded. And,
yeah,
I talked about this in the pre-show. Pat was a kickboxing champion, well-versed in Muay Thai, taught karate, and had a great wrestling background out of Iowa. He was the total package in his day when many men weren't, when most fighters were one-dimensional. And we saw that in this fight at 57 years old.
Yeah, it was, the thing is, he's a lot of these camps today, not to bash them, not at all, much respect, but I'm saying that back in the day, Pat had guys that he developed. He didn't have guys already coming to him that had all this talent, like Matt Hughes, wrestler, but I'm talking about these guys today go to these camps that are already well established,
Yeah, I mean, Brock Lesnar famously went to Miletich Fighting Systems, and Miletich was.
Hold on, bro.
Oh yeah,
hold on. I watched Matt Hughes choke Brock Lesnar out, man.
I was just gonna tell that story. You were there. Tell that story.
Well, I just was grappling. I look over and Matt's on this guy's big monster's back, and he's spinning around with him, and he jumps back like a WWE move, right? And Matt goes down, slammed his back, and he still had the choke in. And Brock tapped, and Pat Miletich is like, dude, what are you doing? You're going to break our champion's back.
That's a legendary story from Miletich Fighting Systems. Man, were you ever there when there was a guy named Steve Rusk?
Yeah, oh yeah. That guy.
Yeah, I mean, a legend. He fought a handful of times and completely dominated. He kind of got bored with the sport. But he's a guy that there's so many legendary stories about from MFS. Do you have any stories about Rusk?
Just watching him maul people, just watching him just totally destroy everybody he touched. That guy was a monster. Yeah.
And it just shows you the toughness of Miletich. And Pat told me the story about when Matt Lindland came out there, and Russ wiped the mat with his head.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, he said Russ wiped the mat with Lindland's head, and we know how incredibly tough Matt Lindland is. I think he might even still be coaching our national Greco team. Uh-huh. So, man, just the crazy stories, and just so people really understand what happened on Saturday night, because I tell you, I had goosebumps. Mike Jackson had a very distinct reach advantage, right?
Yeah, good point.
I mean, hell, I was looking at him at the weigh-ins, and he was towering over Pat. And the way Pat got on the inside and dropped him with that punch so quickly.
It was, it's funny, but also to be able to keep him down. Like Mike Jackson, like I say, he's no bum. He trains with a lot of good people. He knows how to get up. He knows how to defend takedowns. I mean, he did, but Pat was, too strong and too much good technique.
Yeah, Pat was dropping those elbows, and Pat hit that Americana, top wrist lock type position. He had that crucifix, and a couple times he almost finished Jackson. And
man, I was screaming at the front, man. He had that far underhook,
mm-hmm.
and I was waiting for the bell to go down and him do a step over armbar.
Yeah, yeah.
He had it, man. No, hey, it's easy to say when you're watching a fight. You know what I mean?
It's easy to say, and also, I mean, hell, being an older guy myself, and I still coach. Wednesday nights when I gotta say, Fighting Edge Gym, Phil Collins. I always give a plug to those guys, and I still coach. I still coach wrestling too in season at the high school level. And when you
Nice.
get to a certain age, you blow up. I mean, there is no shame in that. It's just Father Time beats us all. But Pat kicked Father Time's ass for 2 rounds.
In my opinion, but it's just my opinion. I thought after thinking about it, I didn't even think about it in the beginning, but afterwards, I wish they would have made that 2 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
For Pat's age.
It should have been, or even if you go back to, I know they're pros, but if you did, because of the age, maybe 3-minute rounds.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
hey, but with Pat, man, a lot of people, I've got friends that say, man, why'd he quit on the stool? And I said, listen, man, you don't know how. You might think you've been out of breath before. You might have been run before, but you ain't never been in a cage fight where you're think you're gonna die if you go. I mean, I had that happen to me, and Spencer Fisher, probably not as bad as Pat did, but I had, and Spencer Fisher talked me out of it, and I went back out there. But I tell you, man, I felt like that in the gym before, and people that talk shit, they've never felt that.
No, and most guys, in their 50s, there's a very small percentage of guys in their 50s that even could make it through a 3-minute round
Exactly.
in an MMA fight. Just one 3-minute round.
It takes a lot of energy it takes a lot of energy to stay on top of a guy like Mike Jackson and throw down elbows and make sure he doesn't get up. That takes a lot of energy. People think that it doesn't. And they think that, oh, well, Mike Jackson, he just was laying there. Hey, you're carrying that weight, man. That wears you out.
Yeah, Pat, it was phenomenal. And, I sent Pat a text afterwards, and I said, I scored that first round, was easily a 10-8.
Yep.
And complete domination in the second round. And it showed Pat's skill set, his legendary skill set, when Jackson hipped out and he got back up and Pat's hands were low, but he was still able to defend, taking in real damage.
Yes.
So it was awesome, man. And what I thought, I was thinking was going to happen after that second round, I could see Pat was blown up, and I said, man, after completely dominating those 2 rounds, he went out, like I said on my social media, he went out like an old gunslinger, walked off into the sunset. He had nothing left to prove. And we should talk to people that don't know the backstory, man.
You know what? That's right. Like, I find it kind of sad, man, really. Like, when you go into boxing gyms, pro boxing gyms, those kids in there can name you all the legends. And you go into an MMA gym, and a lot of these young guys don't even know who Pat Miletich is. I mean, a lot of us do, but there's a lot of I think it's the coach's job to teach the history of MMA.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, God, it's crazy how I look at it by stages, right? Like, because we've had Art Davey on here, and the creator and founder of the original UFC, and in that incubation stage, it was popular because it was a sideshow at the time,
Yeah.
and it was really popular. But that golden age, man, and I want to give a shout out to one of my best friends that passed away last year on Christmas Eve, who we've done tributes to. I did a tribute with Goldie, with Mike Goldberg on here, and with Pat Miletich, actually, who was his broadcast partner. Man, the American Psycho, Stephen Bonner, who was really close with Pat as well. Man, and he and Forrest, I look at that 2005 as like the golden age, right?
Yep.
But if Pat, a lot of people don't realize, Pat officially retired the first time 21 years ago, 2002. And he came back and he fought Renzo Gracie in 2006. And then he had one other fight, retirement fight, that he won in
against Thomas Denny.
Thomas Denny. Yep, that's right. In 2000.
Hey,
But even that was 15 years ago.
right. Look what he did to Thomas Denny. Look how many fights Thomas Denny has, and look how old Pat was then. I mean, he's always old, but I'm saying he was, getting up there.
Nobody, nobody did what Pat did this weekend. 48
Nobody,
year old.
nobody, no 57-year-old is going in the cage and against a UFC veteran and dominating him for 2 rounds.
I mean, hell, Chuck Liddell was 48 against Tito when he came back, right? He didn't. It ended in the first round, I believe.
Right.
Ken Shamrock was 51. I looked up when he fought Kimbo, right? And Ken was winning that fight, but he ended up getting knocked out. So there's nobody in their 50s that came back and fought like that. I say it was historic, man. It was a historic fight. And we know what I think, Jason, is I think Pat he gets a lot of negativity from the fight media because he's outspoken, and I agree with Pat on most things when he's outspoken, but he's free. He freely speaks his mind, and what this guy Mike Jackson did to him with this, trying to go after his job, it's really disgusting in the society.
It is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And that's why I got on Mike Jackson when I messaged him. I tried to bro out with him, dude. I tried to be cool and see where he was coming from. I said, hey man, let me know where you're coming from, because I've known Pat over 2 decades. That's not Pat Miletich, what you're saying, bro. I said, hey man, just and he called me a Nazi, a snow roach, and he told me to go clean my hood. He don't even know
it's
me.
crazy. I mean, a lot of people in our world today, man, they've
And he
lost their
don't even know me,
minds.
bro. The guy don't
Yeah,
even know me. And
he lost his mind.
and
Hey, this guy lost his mind. This guy. But you know what? Did he lose his mind, or was he just trying to get a reaction and get a headline like he did?
well, here's the thing on that. Okay, here's my thing. Okay, I can even deal with the racist stuff. If that's how he feels, okay, fine. You got that right, bro. Market the fight. But what I
Yeah.
can't get past, dude, is going after a man's family, their money, man. I can't get
Oh
past
yeah.
that. And let the record be clear. I've got the messages. He told me that his mama grew him up to always go after the white man's pocketbook, or the white racist pocketbook. That's how his mama taught him.
It's terrible. I mean, I'm a big, live and let live dude, man. I don't care what people believe. I coached a guy, and you see this when they come out. I tell the story, and I think it's important to tell this story now because it kind of speaks to the craziness going on in the world, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told this story before. When I was coaching in South Carolina for Koppel MMA, for Richie Giametta's gym, I always joked that he didn't recruit from Penn State. He recruited from the state pen. He had a lot of ex-cons there.
Right
And
on.
we had 2 fighters. One was a black gangbanger,
Yeah.
and the other one was a fighter who was head of the White Aryan Resistance, right?
Oh shit.
And he had all the swastikas on his neck. And I didn't judge, man. I didn't judge because I knew people who had done time. I know that you do what you gotta. It's society, they divide us, man. But
Absolutely.
this is the crazy story. I was still thinking that this white guy was had to be, he's got to be a racist because he's got the white power and all that. So there was this titty bar that was next door to Capo. It's called Lucky's, man. And one
Sounds
night,
like that sounds like a titty bar.
yeah, and it was a titty bar, and it was all very sexy, curvaceous, busty, Hispanic and black dancers, sexy
Yeah.
women. So Jason, who was a black gangbanger, and another, black fighter, they're like, man, let's go over there. I said, man, you know what? Let's go. Yeah, we'll go over and have a good time. And so, I guess I won't say the white dude's name, but he goes, he's got all the swastikas and everything. And he's like, man, let me come. And I go, and I don't care what people think. what you believe. But I told him, I said, my man, it's probably a little dark in there for you. Probably not what you want to dig on, you
Yeah,
know.
man.
But
Yeah,
dude, we went over there and he was getting lap dances from hot black bitches, and he was and we were sitting there and we were sitting there having a shot at the bar, man, and fucking I go, my man, I go, what happened to the whole white power thing? And we actually had a discussion because the other dude, Jason's buddy, that was the other fighter that was a Jason was a heavyweight. The other dude was like a lighter, like a 155er. And they go, yeah, we know you white dudes got to do what you got to do in prison. Because, and they know that shit,
the
you
what
got
now?
to join up. But I think that's how we're being divided as a society by the
Oh
government,
yeah.
man.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Think
You tell that
yeah,
story to a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, you were with this guy, that this racist guy." I said, "Yeah, but I was with two black fighters, and they understood that he wasn't a real racist. He did
yeah.
what he had to do." Well, with Pat, it's totally different because Pat doesn't, Pat's not doesn't have a racist bone in his body, I don't believe. But this
Well,
dude was all
I just
swastika up and shit. You know,
I just look at all the black fighters that have come through Miletich fighting systems over the years, and Pat's shown nothing but love to them. And I mean, it just blows my mind how Mike comes up with this stuff. And the thing is, my opinion. I mean, Pat went to the White House. He's loved politics his whole life. Okay, he
yeah,
don't.
and he's a brilliant guy, man. I had
I'm
him on my old podcast. We didn't talk fighting, but for the first 5 minutes, all he talked about was the issues, and he's a brilliant man.
yes, and what was I saying? Sorry, I get trained of thought.
Oh no, you were just saying how all the black fighters that have come through Miletich, and there's no racism there.
There never was. I can't think of it. This is what flabbergasted me, bro. I couldn't think of a time back in all my whole career, all the years. I couldn't think of a time where a racist thing happened. And so this like came on me, and I know what I was saying. Pat Miletich, just because he goes to the White House and watches from afar, doesn't participate, watches, wasn't hiding anything. He videotaped it the whole way there, in the
Yeah,
car.
man, that whole thing with that January 6th, it was mostly those Antifa were plants that were. Don't even get me started. I believe
What'd you say? What is it?
they were mostly plants that were planted, like the people who were supposed to be the supremacists and stuff. They found out that most of those people were actually plants by the feds. They were trying to set people up, man. It was the whole thing was a whole setup, man. And Pat's said that. He's talked about that, and it's been proven that a lot of those people that like they were basically like, what's the word that Pat uses? I don't remember, but they were basically plants that were set up to make it look like there were racists there. I wasn't. I mean, it really had nothing to do with race. It was
Bro,
really just, I mean, and you should be able to. I mean, that's the people's house. I mean, don't get me. I mean, you should be able to go there and protest if you want. I'm not somebody that I don't like crowds and I don't like this protesting stuff. But if you want to do it, go for it. I mean, this is America, man.
yeah, I'm not into politics and any of that stuff, but I've learned a lot from Pat, just his podcast and whatnot. And I tell you, some of the stuff was crazy that they'd say on the podcast, like conspiracy stuff, but you
Oh
got to
yeah.
admit, some of it came true.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true, Jason. Like a lot of the false flags and stuff that Pat talks about. I mean, it's like one of the greatest quotes was from General Smedley Butler, 5-star general. I don't want to get too political here on the channel,
Yeah,
but
because I don't know
war,
nothing about
you
it,
know,
dude.
yeah, but also that's not, they don't, Hannibal doesn't want us doing that, but
I got
war
you.
is a racket, war is a racket. And that was from our 5-star general. But the point is that I think my take on Mike Jackson was that he was just looking for attention. He's looking for a headline. He's looking to make a name for himself and keep his name relevant. And he didn't mind taking a beating for 2 rounds to do so.
That's weird to me. That's strange. What else is strange to me? If that happened, I mean, I was thinking, man, I mean, if you haven't seen the fight, anybody that's watching this, if you haven't seen it, you just can't appreciate it. You know, we can't say enough words about it as far as the domination. And if I got dominated like that, and he couldn't come out to the stool, and I was fighting somebody a legend 57 years old, dude, I couldn't have taken that win, man. I would have had to say
No.
something like, I would have had to say no contest or something.
And he said some weird thing about the seasoning of the chicken in Iowa. He had some weird. Did you see his post-fight interview? He was laughing and giggling. He's trying to make a name for himself. Maybe he's trying to fight one of the Paul brothers or something. I was thinking, and get his name out there.
Oh, he'll call them racist next.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, anybody that you disagree with nowadays is a racist or whatever name, Nazi or whatever name you want to call them, and real real racists. It's the best. Adam Carolla says, the comedian, it's the best time to be a real racist because everybody's called a racist now.
oh,
Wow. So
wow.
if you're a real racist, and I don't care. I've always said, man, I really don't care what you believe, man. Do your thing, man.
Hey, man, I'm just a racist against assholes, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm a racist
Absolutely,
against,
man.
assholes.
Absolutely. And Pat's the furthest thing from an asshole. Pat is one of the most down to earth, nicest men you'll ever meet. You know that. I mean, and we just want to.
He's done a lot of things. He's done a lot of things for a lot of people, a lot of fighters. He made a lot of fighters' dreams come true. And another thing, man, what's amazing about the Bettendorf area, what's incredible about it, look at what him and Monty Cox did together. I mean, two guys that became worldwide. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, Iowa became. I mean, let's think about this. Pat had all the belts.
Oh, man. Did he not? Okay. One day I was in the gym and there was Jens Pulver, Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes, and Rich Franklin. Although Rich Franklin wasn't a Miletich guy, he would come here and train from Ohio. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Monty would bring him in from Ohio, because Monty managed him. And so Pat had all 4 UFC champs in one room training, man.
Oh, that's all. I mean, yeah, he had all the belts.
And let me say something.
Yeah.
Dude, I never, ever, I mean, I was 10 years older than everybody else. I had my insurance agency. I had no delusions of grandeur, dude. I was just happy to be there. I wasn't at their level. I was just happy to be there and getting my ass whooped by them and all the other guys that you never hear of, like Jason Black and, Gabe Lemley and, man, there were so many. Spencer Fisher, of course. But, yeah, man. So I wasn't on, I had no dreams of going and getting some title belt, man. I was just riding the wave and, that's it. I loved being there, and I was, and then it was great, man.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's the storied history of Pat Miletich and Miletich Fighting Systems is undeniable. And Pat's legacy was long cemented before this fight, man. He was a UFC Hall of Famer and a legend. And this only adds to his legacy, man. He got it done. I mean, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable when you think about what he was able to accomplish at 57 years old, completely dominating a fighter in his 30s. Awesome stuff. And there's nothing that tainted it. All it did was grow Pat's legacy.
Absolutely. And, again, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I hear people call Mike Jackson a bum. Well, look what he did to CM Punk. Was CM Punk a high-level UFC fighter or what, a high-level MMA fighter? No, but we already talked about
all of those people that are saying that Mike Jackson would completely destroy them.
I know, of course.
I mean, the thing is it's a cancer on our society today.
Yeah.
The trolls and the social media and the fight media. Let's face it. I mean, the headlines by these pencil neck geek Nancy boy reporters that are out there saying that Pat quit on the stool when he completely
That pissed me
dominated
off,
for 2
bro. That
rounds.
pissed me off.
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad to hear you say that because that pissed me off, man.
Well, I'll tell you what. There looked like there was an eye poke at the end of that second round. Did you
Yeah,
see Pat holding his eye?
I did. Yeah.
Now it could have been a situation. Let's just think about this before we close out, where Pat had injured his eye, and his eye was swelling up, and it looked like it was, and he couldn't continue. Right. So then it would probably have been ruled like a no contest, and Pat completely dominated the two. Then the headlines would have been so much different. Um, but the fact that they were what they were just shows you how screwed up our society is today, which is ironic because it goes back to how this whole thing came to be. The cancel culture thing, Jason.
It's nuts. It's
Yeah,
crazy
man.
to me, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean,
To me, it is.
you could, and this is the crazy thing. What kind of a person goes after another man's livelihood?
Man, dude, that's the part I can't get over. The other part, okay, you want to call people that, that's whatever, but the which ain't cool at all, especially when you got black power tattooed on your chest.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Absolutely. I
I
mean,
mean,
this is
you might say, Matt, you might say he does this to get attention and he does this for his promotion, but man, I got a question if a guy does this and he's got black power on his chest. Maybe, I think he's for real, man.
well, he's an absolutely a racist himself. I mean,
Oh,
and
I'm sorry. He told me I said that to him. And he told me that was not a thing, that there's no such thing as black racist. And my black friends tell me there absolutely is. But you know
well,
what's
that's the
funny? What's
the dumbest thing.
hilarious?
Yeah.
Here's what I did to him. I wanted to play psychological warfare with him a little bit. So I text him. All right. I said, dude, Pat's been knocking out pro boxers in the gym, dude. You better keep your hands up. All right. And I'll be gosh damn, man. Pat goes out there and knocks him on his ass.
Fucking drops him. That was beautiful.
I got the text. It was great.
That was and Pat made that young man, not that young, but made that man carry that racist black man carry his weight for that entire first round. It was a clinic. He put on a clinic.
I
Yeah.
thought they were gonna stop it, man, when he was elbowing him for a minute.
Pat had an opening there where he could have come in and thrown all his weight in and maybe blasted him in the face with some punches with a combination with those elbows and ending it. But if you notice, if you go back and watch it, Pat conserved his energy.
Right.
And he was smart because he didn't want to blow up, and he didn't want to blow up and then be putty in Jackson's hands at his age. So Pat fought a brilliant fight.
That's exactly what I was telling my friend last night. He's like, man, he should have this guy's not a fighter. He goes, man, he should have just came and just went nuts on him, dude. I said, oh yeah, right. Then blow his wad. What if it doesn't work out, man? I said, you got to be strategic about it.
You know damn well how quickly you blow up when you're our age, and Pat and that just shows the brilliance of Pat as a master chess player in that cage. He was very smart about conserving his energy throughout round 1 and round 2.
Yes,
and not blowing up. And if you see, he was so relaxed. And that just shows the mark of a legend, the mark of a veteran.
When he was parrying those punches, you see that? When he was parrying the punches, just chilling.
Wow, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And for anybody who hasn't watched this fight, I'm pretty sure has it appeared up on YouTube, Jason? I haven't looked.
No, the only one I can find it on is this one guy's Facebook page. He was there live, and he filmed it. I'll tell you his name. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, man. If you want to say it, because I'm trying to just tell people who haven't seen this where they can watch the fight, because I don't know if you can still even use that link. Because Pat gave me a link to buy it, but that's probably inactive by now.
Yeah, you can go to this guy's page right here. He's got it. 1 second. Yeah, he's got it on here. I'm going to tell you his name, but
Is it
it's
public? It's public.
I think it's public. It's Aurelio De La Rosa.
Okay. Yeah. If, you
Aurelio
know,
De La Rosa. He was there live, and he taped it on his Facebook page. But you know, I would wait till the better version comes out because he could only get it so good. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's funny because the Joe Rogans of the world and the Ariel Hawanis, they need to talk about this fight because
Yes. Damn.
Pat is an absolute legend, and I was promoting this thing with Pat, and I noticed that it wasn't getting a lot of traction. And
Yeah.
you've got a UFC Hall of Famer coming back now. If you recall, when Chuck came back, that wasn't a UFC. When Chuck came, it wasn't that Mayweather's promotion? I don't recall.
I think it was, but I don't know
Yeah,
100%.
see, I don't remember, but everybody was talking about that one. And this one, people need to talk about, and people really need to see this fight.
Well, I was kind of surprised, you know, because it is Pat Miletich, and hey, Caged Aggression's a great promotion, as you know, right?
Mhm.
But we're
Well,
talking about
that's something we should say. That's something we should say. They put on a world class broadcast. That broadcast, the commentators. I know Jeffrey Wilson. I was a guest on Pat's show, and his co-host was Jeffrey. Jeffrey and BJ Penn was calling the action. Right, BJ
uh,
Penn was there,
I
and they put on a world class show. This is a fight that everybody really, if you haven't seen it, you need to watch because it is historic, man.
you know, Monty Cox started that whole thing in Bettendorf, you know, with those legendary fights he had on Miletich and Nunn, and just all the ones over the years, you know. And when he moved, you know, Mike Goodwin kind of took over the area, you know, and doing these shows. But, you know, and like you said, he runs a great promotion. But what I was surprised at, just being transparent, man, I was surprised that like a name like Pat Miletich, I was surprised that that fight wasn't in like a Jake Paul fight, you know, a Jake Paul
Jake
event.
Paul type organization,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Where Pat could have made some really, really serious
I
money.
I'll tell you where it would have been cool to have. I'll tell you down here where we are, in Florida, I hosted one of the celebrity boxings for Damon Feldman, and Coleman's fighting in that promotion coming up soon, real soon, real
Right.
soon. I think in a couple weeks. And he does a world class promotion as well. But I think with Pat, if I'm not mistaken, this Caged Aggression, weren't Jeffrey and Pat commentators and hosts for them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were, or they are, they were, or they were, yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
so
hey,
I think Pat just want to have it in his own. He
yeah,
want to give this
yeah,
beating in his own backyard, and
yeah. And you know what?
let's
I
make no
could be
mistake about it, Jason. This was a beating. He gave this kid a beating.
absolutely did. And hey, but hey, like, no, I'm just talking. I mean, I don't know, like Jake Paul. If Pat Miletich was on a undercard of Jake Paul, I mean, I'm thinking a
Yeah,
ton of money. I'm thinking a
sure.
bunch of
No,
money.
I don't. I believe you there, man. It's
Well, no,
interesting because I think with Pat with Caged Aggression, and I don't want to say this because I don't know for sure, but Pat reached out to me with the link. I was promoting for people. I think Pat is. I don't know if he's has a percentage of that, but it's definitely his home Bettendorf. You talk about going back to Monty Cox. That's his home promotion. So I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah. I get
he
it
wanted to get
for
it done
sure.
there.
For sure, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like fighting in your hometown. You know.
Hell
Uh,
yeah. This was fantastic, man. I think we can kind of wrap it up here for the Hannibal,
right
and
on.
just let everybody know we're getting some questions in. Jason Reinhart, big respect here from one of the folks.
Thanks,
We've
man.
got the fans watching, chiming in, and
Thanks a
really
lot, you guys.
we did the pre-show here for Pat, and this is really a great place to get. The Hannibal TV is a great place to get information on this fight. Jack Kilby from Hannibal TV interviewed Pat a week before the fight too. We want to urge folks to check out that interview. And if you want to hear, and Hannibal should do a sit-down interview with you as well, if you want to hear information from the legends, from Tito Ortiz, Forrest Griffin, my great friend, the late great Stephen Bonner, all across the line, all the legends have been here on the Hannibal TV. And Jason, I want to take a second to thank the Hannibal himself, Devin Hannibal Nicholson, national freestyle champion in Canada, heavyweight, national grappling champion up there, kickboxer, professional wrestler, and a great man here. And it's our pleasure to be on the Hannibal. And happy birthday to you, Devin Hannibal Nicholson. And thank you for.
I appreciate it. Great podcast, you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Hannibal, and wish everybody a great night.